I have cycles of sleep paralysis for as long as I can remember, and regularly see two different demons. The hallucinations are visual, auditory, you can physically feel them at times. They have become more vivid as I gotten older. One is a tall, dark-hooded figure that always stood out at the bottom of my bed. My scariest experience with him was when I woke up one night with sleep paralysis, and the big, spooky, hooded bastard was standing right next to me. His hood was covering his face, but I knew he was watching me, and I knew he was evil. The second one, I see a smallish, grim-type creature that got pointy features with its browny-green color. He normally appears when I'm on my back and restricts my breathing and speaking in a weird whispery language. I woke up once and he was crouching on the corner of the seating. When he looked at me, he turned his head and looked right at me and smiled. I woke up on my side once and I could hear him behind me speaking in his freaky language, and then I felt his snaky tongue going through my ear and making a slithery noise. I can't tell how glad I am when I found out there were scientific explanations for it and that I wasn't actually being haunted. I can't explain how many people with sleep paralysis see similar demons, and how we all just know that things we are seeing are evil. But it's something I choose to not think about too much for the sake of ever being able to sleep again. I've had multiple, but I think this was the worst one. It started out with a dream. You know, those dreams that feel more like you woke up and live an entire day. I was having one of those, dreaming I had woken up, gone to classes, work, etc. Except during the entire dream it felt like I was being watched, like there was someone just in the corner of my line of sight, following me from place to place. Then, in the dream, I get home and got to sleep. Sleep paralysis starts. I heard banging from my front door, like someone is trying to break in, before a louder sound that felt like the front door was torn off its hinges. Then I heard the sound of things being dragged around, as if someone decided the quickest way around the living room was by literally throwing the couch and table out of the way. As they get to the corridor that leads to my room, I can hear heavy footsteps and heavy breathing. Through all of that, I'm trying to stand up and move, but I can barely breathe. The most I can do is move my head around, and not much. Then something kicks my door. Once, twice, and it gives. I can't even see what it was, just a tall shape in the dark room. He gets inside and comes closer and closer. And I wake up, jumping and punching at nothing, falling out of bed, panting. This was the only time I woke up in such an aggressive way, so I guess it would be the worst one yet. My story leaches into the paranormal. I was 7. First time sleep paralysis. Woke up in my bed with a figure in the corner. It started to move towards me, and like everyone else here, there were no distinct features. It got to my feet and I felt the weight of it. I was terrified. Eventually I blacked out and had one of the most intense dreams that I can recall, as if this was last night. I was in a pure white room walking between long shelves of white. Each shelf had books all the way to the ceiling. Each book was white and there were no labels. As I walked down the aisle, I felt I was being pulled towards the end of the aisle by something sinister, but I couldn't turn my head towards the end of the aisle. All I could do was watch the books as I passed them. Eventually, though, I got to the end and finally turned to a raised area of the steps leading into a throne. It was pure white like the rest of the room, and a foot above the throne was a black sphere. In that moment, I could feel its thoughts. It told me that it wanted me to suffer. It wanted to kill my family while I watched. It was pure hatred. At that moment, I woke up, and this thing was on my legs. I flipped out and started screaming, "Mom!" I was able to move again. My mom ran into my room and turned on the lights. She calmed me down, and I lay back down to sleep. Well, about 30 seconds later, she ran into the room freaking out. She was highly religious at that point and started to pray out loud, saying, "In the name of Jesus, get out." She woke up my brother, who somehow slept through the whole ordeal, and now we were both freaking out, crying. Well, years passed and I didn't really think about it until a TV show came on talking about sleep paralysis. My mom and I got to talking, and I said, "Hey, remember that one night? What happened?" Well, she said I was too young at the time and didn't want to scare me. She recounted her version of the story, how she ran into the room to hear me screaming. She went back to her room, and my stepfather was awake and asked if everything was okay. She said it was just a bad dream. He said, "That's weird. I've been awake for a while, and I heard a woman, clear as day, talking in that room." She said she was repeating herself over and over, saying in a very calm voice, "You need to call out your mother. You need to call out her right away. Call out to her." I don't remember that at all. I have no recollection of a voice. I was spending the night at a friend's house in high school, and awoke to a very pale child. Very long arms and legs, like 3 times longer than they should have been. It was in a kind of backwards crab walk position, with its chest facing the ceiling. Its head was spun around backwards facing me, and it just sat there staring at me until I was able to sit up, and then it was gone. Second one was basically like the sandworm, like from any sandworm movie, but made of black smoke, appearing out of a wormhole of sorts that felt like it was pulling me in. Luckily, I hadn't had more since high school. Maybe it was the stress at the time? I don't know. I woke up and it appeared that flames were coming out of the ceiling and I couldn't move. I tried yelling to wake up my sleeping then fiance, now husband, but I couldn't. I was panicking for a few seconds, but then I realized that I didn't smell any smoke and the room wasn't hot. I then thought, oh, sleep paralysis, and went back to sleep. I had a similar episode as a kid where it looked like my computer was on fire and the flames were spreading around the room and I couldn't move or scream. I didn't know what sleep paralysis was at the time, so I thought I was going to burn to death, and also that my mom and dad, brother, and newborn baby sister were going to as well. Well, I finally fully woke up and could move again. The flames were gone. I have this kind of dream regularly, but I have no idea if it's sleep paralysis per se. I was in my friend's bedroom during a sleepover, and a figure from a horror movie we just watched was standing over him, slowly getting closer to him. I was doing everything in my power to get up and help him, but it felt like I was lagging. I would lean off the bed towards him and reach out my arm. Then I would get dizzy and suddenly be laying down flat again. I kept trying to get up to help him, with the same thing continuing, until I eventually woke up and screamed bloody murder. What's really weird is my eyes had to have been already open, because everything in the room was exactly the same as the dream. I was about 12 years old, and woke up to about a 7-foot tall shadow person wearing a top hat. Obviously I couldn't move. Felt terrified as this was the first time happening to me. Finally my arms would work, and I pulled a sheet over my head. The out of sight, out of mind. Never had it happen again. The most scariest experience I had was when I woke up from a nap, and I could hear my mom in the other room talking on her phone while cleaning the bathroom. However, my eyes couldn't open, but my hands could move, so I thought I went blind, which was very scary. I'd used my hands to crawl my eyelids open, which didn't work. Really scary experience if you really think about it. I had it as a kid a few times. Shadows would move, and occasionally form into shapes of various beings. I was only ever terrified when the red light on my TV turned into 2 lights, and they started moving like a set of eyes. Hag came and told me to come with her. I told her no, but she just got more and more angry the more I said no, until at one point she pulls me out of my body and starts dragging me with her. I fight her off until she throws me into the wall, where I'm then stuck in half and half out as she sprints away. I slowly drift back to my body. One of 2 things happen. The type with hallucinations. I seem to wake up paralyzed with my heart pounding to see a figure in a long trench coat and a wide brim hat standing away from me. And it gets closer and closer to me every second until it's standing over me or it vanishes. I can't scream or talk or do anything. Sometimes there's no figure, but I can hear someone walking towards me in heels of some sort. Like a clock ticking, getting closer, but I can't see anything. I don't own a ticking clock and never will. The trench coat ones I had a lot while sleeping on the couch after an operation. Doped up on pain meds, but not only then. Or no hallucinations. I just snap awake completely paralyzed but for my eyes, and I feel like something is sitting on my chest, Like I can't breathe properly, except I'm breathing, usually quite fast. I don't really remember how I got out of these situations. I must fall back asleep at some point, but I remember every moment before that. When I wake up in the morning, you get used to them and recognize them for what they are. But holy shit, sometimes they are so terrifying, you can just let them go and get back to sleep. It can feel like you're laying there for hours unable to move at all. Here's the strangest one, with some weirdness that goes beyond sleep paralysis. Back in the 80s, I fell asleep in my teenage sister's room because she was at work and there was a phone in her room. I had a sleep paralysis episode, which I was prone to, where I saw a shadowed girl standing in the doorway to the room, not really doing anything but being creepy and menacing me while I couldn't move. I faced back into sleep. Then later my sister got home and kicked me out of her room so she could go to bed. The next morning, we were all getting ready for school. I heard my sister talking to my mother about the nightmare she had about the girl standing in her doorframe staring at her while she slept. She had the same description of the apparition. Don't know what it meant, but we both kinda thought of it as a deceased grandmother appearing as a young woman. It kinda looked like old pictures of her. I've had sleep paralysis twice. The first time I had it, I dreamed that there was a monster watching me while I was laying in bed. It was watching me for a short while, then it suddenly ran towards me and bit down my head. Obviously, I was scared like fuck, and I knew I had to wake up, but I couldn't, no matter how hard I tried. It actually began to feel like there was something biting my head, because it felt like my head was going to explode with how hard I was trying to tell my brain to wake up. Eventually I woke up and my heart rate was through the roof. The second time was weirder. I was trying to get to sleep for like an hour with no success. Then after staying awake for about 15 minutes, because I couldn't sleep, I closed my eyes. It pretty much started instantly. It wasn't a dream, because I couldn't see anything but blackness. It was literally as if I couldn't open my eyes, and I couldn't speak. It also felt like I couldn't move, but I swear I did a little bit. I was trying so hard to scream because I was terrified. It literally felt like someone had put a tape over my eyes and mouth so I couldn't open them. After struggling and trying to say something with no success for about what felt like 20 seconds, I was finally able to open my eyes. That one was pretty scary. Haven't had it again yet. The first time I experienced it was by far the most frightening experience I've had. I remember it so vividly. I came home from school tired, so I decided to relax on the couch and maybe take a nap. I don't ever sleep on my back because it's very uncomfortable for me, but this time I had somehow. I remember waking up and feeling this enormous pressure coming down from my body. I was barely able to move my head just a tad bit up, but it kept falling back down to the pillow. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I see this blurry dark figure in the corner of the room. It slowly moved towards me, and all I could feel this extremely dark agony-like presence around me. The figure eventually made its way on top of my body, but it wasn't in a clear sight. Since I felt so much pressure, everything I saw felt blurry. I kept closing my eyes, telling myself it will go away, slowly trying to wiggle my fingers. Eventually, it kept wiggling, and I was able to slowly start moving my other limbs. Didn't know anything about it at the time, but I was so glad to know others